And we're back, everyone. The year of the shotgun. You read the title, so here we are. Kings versus Awen. Which one's better? Well, first, like anything, I'm going to take you through the years a little bit on shotgun caddies. So, I started competitively shooting shotguns 15 years ago now. And the shell caddy game has changed quite a bit. It had already evolved before I started getting into the sport, and it continued to evolve pretty quickly. I don't have my Gen 1 caddies here. I started with the same crappy California competition plastic ones that you can still get. I got the 6-rounders because it's a noob trap, and I was a noob. What can I say? Yeah, so I had the 6-round. They were this style, a single shell caddy, but they were plastic, so they flexed, and then they had this kind of weird spacer in them, so you could shoot 3-inch shells or something like that. I believe they're still in production. They're still around because Timmy's still buy them for whatever it is they do with them, because they're not really good for anything. Like most people, I found somebody newer than me who wanted some caddies for cheap, and I sold them. I thought I still had them hanging on my wall here, and turns out I don't. So the earliest generation I have is these. These were made by AP Customs. These particular ones were distributed through Nordic Components at the time. And so these were aluminum, billet aluminum with a piece of spring steel on the top there, and these presented the shells in the old school way. I'll call it the underhand method of loading, where you would grab 4 of these out here and you would single load them through. Now these are live shells, but you can calm down because there are no live shotguns within arm's reach here. So no light switches or hotel rooms are in any danger. But these were the first kind of style of them. Man Mountain was the OG brand. You were super cool if you had the Man Mountain ones. And then these came along shortly after, just a better presentation. They load super easy. Now they're not gonna on here, but yeah, you just kind of stack them in there, and the shells come out in a conventional way that you would think of. That top one goes in there kind of, but that spring on the top holds them in there so you can do all the 3-gunny things running around, and then as you grab them, they come out pretty smooth, and you could load them into your shotgun. The next evolution on these, and what I competed with for a long time, I affectionately called them the cubes, but these were the AP Customs 4x4s, so it was the same thing. They just stacked 2 of them together, and I kind of treated them like single stacks in that I kind of grabbed off the front as my primaries, and then the second row you had to come in deeper to get them. So this was more like for really big shotgun stages, or oh shit ammo, or if I was candy cane and stuff, the slugs were behind. It was more intricate to reach into that second row to get them, so I basically treated them like a single stack. And I just grabbed off the fronts first, and then I started transitioning to the rears. But I use these for a long time. I'm an old soul, all right? So I pretty much am one of the last true gunfighters on most things. I hold on for a long time. I'm not the first to switch. So when they started loading twins and they started loading quads, I was a big OG Noveski shooting team. Rob Romero, who else was, obviously Jansen Jones. I'm trying to think of some other people. Keith Garcia was an underhand loader for a long time. Dan Horner did it. Dan Horner stuck with it longer than I did. He did it a different way. But I really liked that loading method, and I had a lot invested in it. So it took me a long time to change. Eventually, when I did, there were a lot of caddies on the market that would service twins and quad loading. The one that I jumped to first and stuck with for a long time was the carbon arms. What I liked about them was they were modular. All these have different configurations you could get them in. These are just representative of the type, but these were injection molded plastic, so they held the shell very well. The shell snapped in there pretty firm, and you got a pretty good presentation off of them. And for 3-gun, I really liked these because they were quick, they held the shells well, and they were rugged enough that you could like lay prone with them. All right, so these I think I've been quad loading with them probably almost about 10 years now. Well, yeah, 10 years. So I've had these, a full set of them. I've broken one clip one time, and that was probably preventable. So they're super durable. They pack the shells in super tight. So some of the early caddies servicing this loading method, they weren't very space efficient. So that's what I liked about these. They were space efficient. They held the shells well. They were easy to configure the way you want. They weren't easy to assemble. I don't know that any of these were easy to assemble. But they served me well for a long time, and again, had no desire to change as other shell caddies went on the market. Other ones came and left. AP Customs had their version. Invictus Practical comes to mind. Safariland did theirs for a little bit. And as those came and left the market, I was not interested. I was like, my needs are served with these, and I don't need to change. As far as I know, they're still in business and you can still buy them. So I was team carbon arms for a long time. People asked me what you use. I would tell them. I was like, just go there. Well, what about? I don't know about them. I know these work good. But that's in a 3-gun environment. In a 3-gun environment, picture as multiple guns get involved, any single thing starts to dilute out. Like, you're not going to win and lose most 3-gun stages in a draw. You're going to win and lose a USPSA pistol stage in a draw. All right. So a lot of the inefficiencies of something like this would water out over the course of a whole stage, and in return we needed some ruggedness and we needed some dependability. There's the first thing you're not going to do is draw from it. Same with my USPSA rig. All right, I use both a Henning Group magnetic pouch, which this is not the right magazine, but there's a magnetic pouch. It grabs it's super efficient to draw from, but if you bump this thing the wrong way, it comes off. Whereas a pouch like this holds a magazine more correctly. I don't have a wide body magazine here, and that was a miss. I'm sorry. But kind of the same thing here. When a speed load is winning and losing a match, I have a magnetic pouch. When I need ammo to be there throughout the course of a stage, I use something like this. And I started to have a need for something like that in my shotgun caddies as we started playing IPSC games. All right, so as I was brushing up to shoot the IPSC qualifiers, the 2025 season here, I started to feel like these were costing me time. I needed one of the more efficient caddies, and that's what led me to the King caddies. All right, so from here I jumped to here, and the main reason why is these still hold the shells. I haven't shot them enough in 3-gun to super trust them if I have to go prone on them. I don't know that I would trust them to go prone on them, because they're essentially what holds them in there, where in a carbon arms caddy, it's snapped in place there. Like, it is physically being held by the caddy. Here, pretty much what you got going on is spring pressure holding them like that. So any kind of disturbance you try to chop it kind of falls apart pretty easy. All right, so that's what I was worried about in these. But I needed the speed. And so between the carbon arms, the 3-gun caddies, and a King caddy, these did come off a lot smoother, a lot faster. So pretty quickly this season, I jumped to something like this. And if I was terribly honest with you, when I jumped, it's pretty well considered. Like, people it's not like people debate caddies right now. It's like, if you're buying caddies, it's like, well, are you buying kings? Like, it's kind of a standard that a lot of them are judged by right now. And I think they were one of the first, at least one of the first successful ones to do this combination of things. So what's important about this type of caddy is that, one, they're using magnets. So magnets hold the shells up on top here a little bit, depending on how magnetic your shells actually are. But there's a little bit of magnetism holding them in there. It's not going to hold these shells in there because they're not as magnetic as others. But also they're using spring tension to hold some in. So one of the things that a lot of the early caddies ran into was that, in theory, these shells are 2 3/4 inch long, but depending on how they do the crimp on the end there and how consistent they are in the crimp, these actually manifest themselves in marginally different lengths. So it's not a big deal every time, except when you're trying to rely on that dimension to hold them tight together. So what this type of system did for us was it gave us some variance to hold the shells, because the spring itself was a variable, and so it would expand to whatever size the shells were. And so sometimes your birdshot shells, actually quite often, your birdshot shells are a different length than your slug shells. All right, that was something we ran into with these guys. All right, they didn't always hold the shells in super well, or the shells were too long and they kind of bound up in there. This gave us some variability in accommodating the shells while still having a quick and easy grab on both of them. And so the first type that I became aware of making this type of caddy was the kings. To be honest with you, I did not shop very much when I was looking to buy these. I just didn't want the labor pains. I just wanted the baby. People were saying kings were the one. I had tried them a few times at matches. It was either Texas 3-Gun Championship or the Vortex Shootout 2023, 2024. They actually had them on a stage. There was a monster stage where you needed a bunch of shells, and a lot of times people don't have enough caddies to carry that many shells. So a lot of times either caddies start getting shared, or in that case, Kings was a stage sponsor of that, so they had some belts for you to try them. So I did try them on the clock. I'm like, oh yeah, I would use those. And so I just went straight here. Now, to be transparent, I know people at this company and at this company. All right. So I know people at both. I paid full price for these with my own money. I bought them from a friend of mine. I bought them from the distributor in the U.S. is Hayes Custom Guns. And I could easily have just asked Aaron for them, and he probably would have given me a break, but I didn't. I just ordered them off his website at full price. But I bought these. I bought 2 of them. So I have two 8-banger or 2 12-bangers. So that would pretty much do most of my IPSC needs, and then I would augment with what I already have invested in carbons. So was not looking to move off of these until Briley Manufacturing sponsored On the Perf podcast. All right, so now we have a partner, and they sell a competitive brand of shell caddy. So I did feel kind of compelled to check these out. So to be honest, that is the reason that I started using them, is because they sponsored our show. OTP On the Perf podcast, OTP 10, Briley Manufacturing. You save yourself 10% on these or anything else if you want. That's just, they support our show. So using that code shows that their marketing dollars are working. But essentially, when I got involved more with Briley Manufacturing, I was like, okay, well, I better try your caddy system, because you make almost the identical thing. And, you know, it just goes, it's on brand to use what your sponsors sell. So I tried them out. When I first saw these before I was sponsored by Briley, I thought the same thing that most people do. It's like, oh, it's like a Kings, or it is a Kings. Like, oh, there's the Kings. No, these aren't Kings. These are like the Kings. Oh, okay. Why do I care? So a couple things to notice on these between the Kings and the Awens. I think it's Awens. I asked Robbie. It was a long time ago, and it was late at night. So I think it's pronounced Awen, A-W-E-N, Awens. Briley is the U.S. distributor of these, or they're imported from Europe. So actually, no, I don't know that to be true. Somewhere in Europe. But between the two styles, the first thing that should jump out to you is that the springs underneath, or the springs on the Kings are underneath. So the entire signature of the caddy is larger than the footprint of the Awens. All right, they're clean underneath. As soon as that was pointed out to me, I'm like, oh, I really like that. Because the first thing that jumps out to me on these is that, you know, when it's when it's belt mounted. All right, when it's belt mounted and the belt is at my waist, I bend over, the first thing that pokes into me is down here. So I start to have like a clearance issue to wear this. Whereas on these, I have less signature underneath to, because real estate around your waist becomes pretty premium, especially the smaller you are. My partner on the perf, Adam Reiser is a small guy. There is only so much waist for him to use. His belt, basically, I could wear as a headband. All right, and he's got to carry the same amount of gear as I do. So it's a more compact signature underneath here because the springs fold up towards the center, whereas the springs are underneath down here. All right, so I like that. I also feel like subtly so, let's see if we can get it on camera here. But subtly so, I feel like the Awens pack the shells a little bit tighter together. Again, real estate. All right, so real estate, they get them just a little bit tighter together. So you can see here, there's actually a light gap between the rims. On the Awens, they're so tight that they almost overlap. They actually do overlap. And to the point where these almost start to fight rim lock. So I actually, when I load my Awens, I actually start from one side and load across to the other side, or I start in the back and load towards the front, because the rims actually stack on top of each other. I want them stacked the same way every time so that they don't fight each other as they're coming out. More space efficient both in overall signature, and they're packing more shells into a smaller space, which that doesn't seem like a whole lot until you multiply it by 32. All right, 32 times, save yourself a couple tenths of an inch, you start to fit a whole other set of shells in the same area. So it's a tighter package. Release is still great. Actually, I think I like the release better on these. It's a little bit cleaner, I would say. That's just going to be personal preference, but I do feel like I get a little bit cleaner bite or ejection off of the caddy on the Awens. I would say I feel like these are a little bit more sensitive to tension on the spring. I pretty much did not mess around with the Kings at all, and they were pretty much plug and play. They hold the shell on the bottom here. On the bottom, on the foot, they hold the shell a little bit tighter, so like it will stay on there. Whereas there's a footprint for them here. I doubt it's not really going to stay on there. Not that that's something I need. They're just kind of right on the line there, and that's kind of dependent on which shells you use. But overall, you're not getting a whole lot of support holding the shell on from the bottom. It's just cupping the shell and applying spring tension up towards the top, which is awesome for the release. But I did play around with the spring tension on here a little bit. I'm not sure how consistent they are in assembly, so I'm not sure if mine was assembled because they knew I was getting it, or if there's two people that assemble them and they do it differently. From the way I received this one, and this is the 32 round rack, from the way I received this one, I am 1 full turn tighter on spring tension for all of these from stock. Your mileage may vary. I'm a full turn tighter on tension from stock. There is one, and it was the first one here, so I got a little bit too much tension on it. I might have overturned it a little bit, but it was almost like they would almost like bow out just a little bit, kind of like that. And that was where I started to think they were too tight. They were squeezing a little bit too tight, and so they would kind of explode if you agitated them too much. So I backed that off a little bit, but I would take that as the indication that you have too much tension on here. I wanted more tension, so they're held in there tighter. And then as you release, they kind of snap off cleaner, but you can get them over tight to the point where they start to kind of tent out like that. And then you're kind of, makes me nervous. And you kind of want them to come out straight in your hand. You don't want them cattywampus in your hand for a good quad. So I did play around with the tension on these, and I have them a full turn tighter than stock from the way that this one was assembled. So between the two, I would say they're very similar products. I do like the Awen's better on its own merits, and also Briley supports the content here. So full disclosure on that. But between the two, I do like that. This one you'll notice is on a belt, like a kidney belt or a weightlifter belt. You can get all of them set up on, you can get Kings, you can get Carbons set up on there. That's primarily an IPSC thing, because IPSC has a dimensional requirement of how far the shells can be from your body. I forget what it is off the top, but there is a dimension of how far they can be from your body on the belt. And if people belt mount them to ELS clips or things like that, people started to wonder if this dimension was too far and would be illegal. We didn't check that here in the US because nobody who's been to an international match could tell me how that was checked or if it was checked. Everybody that I asked said they didn't look at that. So we were replicating what they do overseas. And so if we couldn't replicate their process, we kind of left everybody alone on that. But the conventional wisdom is that is too far away from your body to mount them on ELS clips like that. So most of the serious IPSC competitors, shotgun competitors in the US here, have gone to some kind of belt, or they're going to go overseas. The other reason you see belts like this is for jungle runs. Essentially, when people start to try and find more ways to carry more shells on their body. So I had a full rack on my belt. The next weapon in my arsenal that I wanted was a chest rig. So now I have a chest rig and a full belt set up to do those big caddies and be self-sufficient. So that's why I chose this one. This is my primary IPSC rig, and now I can augment what I've already invested in on my belt. You can get the same thing on the Kings. You can get the same thing on the Carbons or any other type of caddy that you want. But a lot of the people are using belts like this either because they are limited on real estate for the larger round count shotgun stages, or to fulfill that legality requirement of distance from the shell to your body in IPSC. But that's real quick. Between the two, I'll say is horse apiece. They are the same idea, executed subtly different, primarily in how they mount the springs on there, and then the back plate. So this one also, it's I believe it's a polymer backer, but essentially this thing is held on here with Velcro. So you put the Velcro backing on the caddy, you stick it to the belt. You can reconfigure it as you want. I don't love the idea of taking that Velcro on and off a bunch of times. I kind of want it to stick there and stay there forever. That's how I mounted them on here. But the primary difference on these is they're both kind of magnetically based, spring tensioned, adjustable spring tension caddies that are really a nod towards speed on your quad loads. These are tough. I think they certainly would take you laying on them if you wanted to. I don't think you would break them. Like, there were eras of product where I think you would break that. I think you would break the TACCOMs laying prone on them, or I think you would break I know you would break the AP Customs laying on them because they were just flanges of spring steel. These you could lay on. I'm just not sure how many shells would be with you when you got up, and that's not a gamble you can afford to take on some of the bigger 3-gun stuff. So, so kind of an augment on my setup until I have a chance to play around with them a little bit more in that regard. If I could lay on them and trust them like that, go rock on. As construction wise, they could certainly take it. I just have questions as to whether your shells would be there or not. But horse apiece between the two, executed about the same. I load the same speed off both of them. Just feel wise, I get a little bit better presentation on the Awens and a bit more size efficient in both overall signature and how many shells they fit into one place. But you can't go wrong with either of them. If I were investing again today, I would buy Awens all day long. And if you want to, like I said, we do have a discount code for our podcast on the Perf podcast. So if you hit OTP 10 at Briley Manufacturing, you can get yourself a discount on these, and they're not cheap. So that'll help you out. That's the quick and dirty on shell caddies. A little bit of a look into some of the older gear. I still keep this stuff around for like if I have a big stage, and then there's the Zoo City guys are good for this one. Big long jungle run stage, and then there's slugs at the end. So it's like, it's not only is there a different type of ammunition, but you don't know how many of those you need, like, because you missed, right? So, and the more you start trying to put ammo behind your waist, the harder it is to do a quad load type grab. So at that point in the stage, I'm also kind of using these racks as kind of my oh shit ammo in the back, reaching into the small of my back. So I still keep them around, but it's the old school way of loading. It is slower. They have limited usefulness now. Still would 100% use the carbon arms in the 3-gun world for any sort of multi-gun stage where I had to go prone, or they were making me get in and out of vehicles or confined spaces or something like that. But if it's straight up speed, this is pretty much the winner now. And this is what most serious guys are using. In between these two, like I said, I would nod towards the Awens. You're not going wrong either way, though. But that's all I have to say about that. So, like I said, most of the contenting effort right now is going into the podcast on the Perf podcast. If you're not joining us over there already, and if you are, we appreciate your listen. And I got some other ideas of stuff I want to crank out here. So stay tuned, and we will get you more thoughts on more action shooting topics here in the near future. Be easy, everyone.